This message may feel unexpected, and that slight tension or discomfort you sense right now is the first indication that you're finally ready to hear what your inner self already understands. You came here hoping for reassurance that this person would return, that the waiting would stop, and that the silence would shift into reunion. But the universe has guided you here for a different kind of clarity. At times, the deepest form of universal love is not the promise that someone will come back, but the freedom to let them go. It is not always about a prediction of reconciliation, but about the quiet blessing of closure. This is not the message encouraging you to wait longer, hold on more tightly, or invest your energy into a future that pulls you away from your present life. This message is here to tell you that you have moved forward. Your lesson is complete, and the door you believed was closing because of heartbreak is actually opening toward your freedom. Not every separation is meant to be temporary, and not every silence is waiting to be filled. Some endings are not pauses, but decisive conclusions, necessary to clear the space so a new story can begin, written in ink that will not fade. You have been seeking a sign, and this is the one. Even though it comes in a way you didn't expect and expresses a truth you may have avoided, it is exactly what you were meant to hear now. The universe does not always respond to our prayers in the exact way we express them. Sometimes it answers the deeper request beneath our words, the one your soul whispered when your mind was too hesitant to hear it. While your heart has been hoping for their return, your soul has been quietly asking for freedom. And now, in this moment, both of those prayers are becoming one. Right, I am ready to hear truth. In the comments if you're prepared to receive this message, if you're strong enough to understand what love becomes when it stops pleading and begins respecting itself. Not every powerful connection is meant to last, and the intensity of your emotions does not decide how long someone stays. Some people enter your life with the force of a revelation. They disrupt every shaky foundation you built, and they make you feel more alive in 6 months than you did in the 6 years before them. Yet even with that impact, they are not always meant to stay. They are soul teachers disguised as soulmates, catalysts wrapped in the language of forever, mirrors appearing at the exact moment you needed to see yourself with clarity, even if that clarity cost you your comfort. This person was the earthquake, not the foundation. They were the wildfire that cleared away what no longer served you, not the garden meant to grow afterward. They were never intended to be the final destination, only the disruption that guided you toward it. Carl Jung recognized this when he wrote about meaningful encounters that break open the psyche, experiences that push us to face what we've kept hidden in the shadows. Not because those people are meant to remain, but because they are meant to create change. Some relationships exist not to complete us, but to reveal us. They show us the parts of ourselves we have ignored, denied, or buried beneath habits, expectations, and practiced behavior. This person revealed your capacity for depth, for commitment, and for feeling far more than you believed you could hold. In doing so, they fulfilled their role in your life, what your soul agreed to learn through them. The intensity you experienced was genuine, the connection real, and the transformation lasting. And none of that means they were supposed to remain beyond the season in which their teaching was meant to occur. You have been confusing the depth of the lesson with the permanence of the one who delivered it, assuming that the awakening they sparked required them to stay in your life. But spiritual truth works differently from romantic expectation. Not everyone who opens your eyes is meant to continue walking beside you in the light. Some pass you the lamp and then fade back into the darkness they emerged from. Your task is not to follow them into that shadow, but to move forward with what they helped you see. There are gifts within this pain, lessons so closely tied to the heartbreak that it's hard to separate the hurt from the understanding it brought. And now it is time to recognize what this person offered you, even while their presence took so much. They revealed your strength by challenging it, by placing you in moments that required you to rise when every part of you wanted to give up. They pushed you to edges you didn't realize existed and observed whether you would fall or find your balance on that narrow edge. Every time you made it through another disappointment, another broken promise, or another moment where you felt unseen by someone you cared for deeply, you were building the resilience you will carry into every relationship that comes after this one. They taught you boundaries by crossing them, by showing you exactly what it feels like when someone fails to honor your needs, does not respect your limits, and does not treat your heart as the meaningful space it is. Through that disregard, the seeds were planted for your refusal to ever accept such behavior again. They revealed your worth by overlooking it. They created such a clear contrast between what you deserved and what you received that you could no longer ignore the difference. You could no longer explain it away, minimize it, or justify accepting less than what your soul needed. This is the difficult grace of relationships that diminish us. They show us clearly and undeniably what we will no longer tolerate. And that clarity becomes the guide that leads us toward people who will appreciate what this person failed to recognize. They taught you that love without reciprocity is not love but performance. That intensity without consistency is not connection but disorder. That potential without follow-through is not promise but illusion. And these lessons are ones you could not have learned from someone who treated you well. This relationship was a spiritual curriculum crafted for your growth, each painful chapter a necessary course in self-awareness, self-respect, and self-restoration. They were not the villain in your story, but the one who initiated your growth. Their inability to show up for you became the catalyst that pushed you to finally show up for yourself. You've been looking for closure through their words, their apology, or their recognition. But the closure you want is already present in everything you've become because of what you experienced. The lesson is finished, not because they eventually changed, but because you did. It isn't that they will not love you in the way you need, it's that they cannot. And there is an important difference between these two forms of impossibility that you must understand if you are to free yourself from the cycle of waiting. Will not implies choice. It suggests that beneath their resistance is a capacity they are simply refusing to use, and that with enough patience, effort, or perfection on your part, you could convince them to become someone they are not. Cannot is the truth that ultimately sets you free. They do not have the emotional structure, the psychological growth, or the spiritual maturity required to create the kind of love you need. And no amount of your effort can build in them what they have not developed within themselves. You have been loving someone at a level of awareness they have not yet reached, speaking a language of depth they do not yet understand, offering a presence they are not yet able to receive or return. This is not a judgment of their value as a person, but an acknowledgement of where they are in their own process. And where they are is not where you are. The space between these two places is not a gap you can close by trying harder or waiting longer. Some people are still learning lessons you completed years ago, still making mistakes you already moved beyond, still reacting from wounds you have already healed. And you cannot pull them across that divide through the strength of your devotion alone. You have outgrown this pattern, even if you haven't fully admitted it to yourself yet, even if accepting it feels like a betrayal of everything you invested to make this work. Growth is not always about gaining more. Sometimes it is about letting go, releasing connections that once felt right but now restrict you. It means stepping back from people you care about but can no longer keep in the closest parts of your life. They are not wrong, and you are not abandoning them. You are simply honoring the truth that love on its own is not enough when it lacks compatibility, reciprocity, and the shared ability to build something steady and fulfilling for both individuals. You fell in love with who they could become, with the glimpses of potential you noticed beneath their fear and patterns, with the version of them that appeared in rare moments of openness or clarity, and made you believe that if you stayed long enough or tried hard enough, that potential would turn into a steady reality. This is one of the most tempting traps in unfulfilled love. thinking you can see someone's highest self clearly enough to bring it forward, believing your vision of who they could be will become the plan they use to rebuild themselves, trusting that your faith in their future will matter more than their commitment to the person they are today. But potential is not a person, it is a possibility. And possibilities without consistent action become beautiful stories we tell ourselves to justify staying in situations that drain us. You cannot love someone into a growth they have not chosen for themselves. You cannot heal wounds they refuse to face. You cannot build a future with someone who is still avoiding their present. The person you fell in love with, the radiant version of their best self, exists only in your imagination and in those brief moments when they rise to meet it before returning to patterns that feel safer, familiar, and aligned with the person they have decided to be. Subscribe if you are ready to stop waiting for potential to become reality. If you are ready to love people as they are, not as you wish they would be. If you are ready to stop offering your heart to those who cannot recognize its value. Every day you spend waiting for someone to become who you need them to be is a day lost in finding someone who already is. A day spent investing in a future that requires their change instead of living in a present where you are fully seen, fully accepted, and fully cherished as you are. The universe is not asking you to give up on their potential. It is asking you to stop sacrificing your reality for it, to stop putting your life on hold while waiting for them to reach a version of themselves they may never choose. There is an accounting to be made, a reckoning with what this prolonged waiting is taking from the treasury of your life, from the limited resources of your energy, your time, and your ability to remain open to love that does not require you to beg for it. Every day you remain tied to someone who cannot meet you is a day you cannot fully meet yourself. You cannot fully show up for the opportunities and connections trying to reach you because they cannot get past the wall of your devotion to someone who is not equally committed. This is the cost of holding on, the hidden price you pay in closed doors, missed moments, and potential futures that fade before they can flourish because you are focused on a garden that refuses to grow. Every day you wait for them to change is a day you miss meeting your true match, the person who is out there now, perhaps also waiting, perhaps also wondering if they will ever find someone who sees them the way you see this person who does not see you in return. In the vast dance of human connection, there are people moving toward you who will not make you question your worth, will not leave you analyzing crumbs for signs of interest, and will not require you to perform, prove yourself, or shrink to fit into the limited space they offer. But you cannot receive them while your hands are still full of someone who keeps letting you fall. You cannot hear them calling while you are straining to hear the silence of someone who will not respond. The energy you pour into this unfulfilled connection is energy stolen from your own growth, from the projects, passions, and pursuits that wither from neglect. While you invest in a relationship that does not invest in you, you have been betraying yourself in both small and significant ways, accepting less than you deserve, rationalizing treatment you would never tolerate from anyone else, and excusing behaviors you would advise a friend to run from. Each act of self-betrayal builds until you barely recognize who you have become while loving someone who does not return that love with equal devotion. Walking away is not giving up, it is growing up. It is not surrender, but discernment, not failure. But the most profound success for those who value themselves enough to stop accepting love that feels like deprivation. Leaving what is familiar but unfulfilling requires spiritual maturity. It means choosing the uncertainty of what might come over the certainty of what is not working. It is honoring yourself enough to close the door on connections that keep you small, stuck, and separated from your highest potential. The universe has been trying to clear this path for you, sending signs, synchronicities, and opportunities to exit gracefully. But you have been reading each open door as a test of loyalty rather than an invitation to freedom. You must release the wrong one to make space for the right one. This is not metaphor, it is an energetic law. The basic principle is that what you cling to cannot leave, and what you release may return transformed or not at all. Both outcomes are blessings because each restores your sovereignty. As long as you hold space for someone who is not filling it, you block the natural flow of new connections, opportunities, and forms of love trying to reach you, but cannot find room in a heart already occupied by someone who treats it as temporary lodging rather than a sacred home. Letting go creates the energetic space the universe rushes to fill. But you must make the space first. You must be willing to stand in the emptiness long enough for something new to emerge. This is not about whether they deserve another chance, whether you are being too harsh, or whether you will regret your decision when you are alone at 3 a.m., questioning yourself. It is about listening to the deepest voice inside you, the one whispering truth beneath all your rationalizations, justifications, and desperate attempts to make this work. The voice that says this is not it. This is not the love you are meant to settle for. This is not the relationship that will nourish the person you are becoming. Walking away honors that voice, finally allowing it to be heard instead of drowned out by hope that has hardened into denial. Carl Jung wrote that we cannot change anything until we accept it. Perhaps what you must accept now is that this connection has given all it had to give, has taken you as far as it was meant to take you, and the next part of your journey requires you to travel it alone until you meet the companion who matches your pace. The moment you truly release them, not with bitterness, but with blessing, not with anger, but with acceptance, everything in your energetic field shifts and rearranges itself around this new truth. And the universe can finally act on your behalf in ways it could not while you were still holding on. There is a special kind of magic that happens when you stop forcing and start allowing. When you stop chasing and start choosing yourself. When you stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to live fully and grant that permission to yourself. The very act of letting go sends a signal into the quantum field of all possibility. It announces that you are ready, ready for what is real rather than potential, ready for love that does not require you to beg, prove your worth, or wait endlessly for it to decide you are enough. Space must be created before it can be filled. You have been so full of them, the relationship, the hope, the heartbreak, that there has been no room for anything new to enter. When you release them, when you truly detach and call your energy back from the place you scattered it toward them, you become available in a way you haven't been since the moment you met them. You become magnetic to aligned connections, to people who see you clearly, to love that flows naturally rather than love that demands constant effort to maintain. Share this message if you are choosing yourself. If you are ready to stop waiting and start moving forward, if these words resonate with the part of you that has been waiting for permission to leave, they might return, transformed by your absence, finally capable of meeting you, humbled by the growth they refused while they had you. And if they do return, you will know by then whether you even want them back, or whether you have grown so far beyond who you were when you loved them that reunion would only be regression. Or they may not return at all, and you will discover that their absence was the gift, that the space they left became the doorway through which your real life finally entered. You do not need their apology to close this chapter. You do not need them to understand what they took from you, acknowledge the pain they caused, or validate your experience. Closure is not something they grant through final conversations, explanations, or admissions of failure. Closure is something you give yourself when you decide your healing does not depend on their participation, when your peace does not require their comprehension. You can write the ending of this story without waiting for them to agree. You only need your own permission to move forward, your own recognition that you have taken every lesson this connection had to offer. Your own willingness to carry what was beautiful, release what was harmful, and step into your future unburdened by the need for them to see you the way you needed to be seen. They may never understand what they lost, may never recognize the gift they discarded, and may never reach the awareness required to grasp the depth of your love or the rarity of your devotion. and that is not your responsibility to fix. Their understanding is not required for your liberation, yours is. You now understand that you cannot heal in the same environment that wounded you, cannot grow in the same dynamic that kept you small, and cannot become who you are meant to be while tethered to someone who needs you to remain who you were. Closure happens the moment you stop seeking it from them and start creating it within yourself. The moment you decide the story is complete, not because it ended the way you wanted, but because you choose to stop writing chapters in a book they abandoned long ago. You close the loop by releasing them from the role you assigned, by accepting they were never meant to be your forever, and by blessing them for the lessons while refusing to enroll in remedial courses of pain. The power has always been yours. You were simply waiting for them to give you permission to use it. But permission is not required when you are sovereign, when you are whole, and when you are ready to stop being a student and start being the author of your own becoming. There is a future waiting for you on the other side of this release, a version of your life so different from what you've known that, in retrospect, you will understand why the universe would not let you settle, why doors kept closing despite your efforts to prop them open, why this person could never be what you needed them to be. Someone is coming who will never make you question whether you are loved, will not leave you decoding messages for hidden meanings, and will not require you to shrink yourself to fit into their limited capacity for connection. This pain has been the preparation, the refining fire that burned away your tolerance for half love, almost commitment, and potential that never materializes. When your true match arrives, you will recognize them by how easy it feels, how natural, how free of the anxiety, confusion, and constant negotiation that defined this past connection. Your real love story is just beginning, even if you cannot see it yet from the wreckage of this one. Even if it feels impossible to imagine anyone making you feel the way this person did or to open your heart again after such deep wounds. But you will, because that is what hearts do when they are loved properly. They heal, expand, and become capable of even greater depth and devotion than before the breaking. Thank this person silently for the lesson, for showing you exactly what you do not want, so you can immediately recognize what you do, for loving you poorly enough that you finally learn to love yourself well. Then walk forward without looking back, without checking if they are watching, without waiting for them to call. Your next chapter does not include them, and that is not a tragedy but a triumph, not an ending, but the beginning of everything you've been preparing for, even when you didn't know it.